The playoffs are here, and you can predict the action all the way to the finals with FanDuel Predicts. Predict the spread, the total points, and even the game-winning moments that make the playoffs. Sign up and get a $25 bonus with FanDuel Predicts.
Offered by FanDuel Prediction Markets, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant. 18-plus bonus is non-withdrawable and expires 7 days after receipt. Trading derivatives involves significant risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Manage your activity with their consumer protection tools. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/predicts/bonus-offer-terms.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, it's here. The summer of 2026. And fabulous. I got my white pants on right now. It's legal to wear white after Memorial Day or on Memorial Day, all the way through Labor Day. For some reason, I have a lot of denim white pants that look great, that actually fit. They're kind of stretchy. And I'm all in. I think this is going to be a great summer. Right, De Niro? It's going to be a great summer. I do feel very, very good. Very optimistic. A little annoyed at certain things, but I'll get through that. And so will you if you're annoyed about, oh, goodness gracious, a lot of rhinos out there trying to trip up my side, our side. This John Thune, the pretty boy, oh, man, that guy can't be trusted. Thune from South Dakota. He hates Trump. I can see it in his face. How dare he? All right, a couple of other things. Let's see. The president right now is at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. He's getting a full checkup. People are speculating. There are medical panels. They have doctors on all day long on CNN. Let's see here. They want to look at his. Let's see. They want to look at his blood. They want the results. They want this. They want that. They allowed Joe Biden to decline right in front of us, right in front of our faces, and they pretended it was normal. Trump says he takes higher than recommended dose of aspirin. I heard him once talk about that, actually, that he took aspirin. He told me, and in private, actually, he wanted to know if I took an aspirin. I told him I took a baby aspirin. You know, there are people who disagree about. Somebody once told me, medicine is not a science; it's an art. And you know, not everybody. You can be fabulously educated. You can have all the right degrees, and somebody else could have all the right degrees. That's why we get a second opinion. You get a second opinion and see, like, and then what? It's your decision as the patient. We don't live in this, we don't delegate those kinds of things to experts. President Trump may have heard something a long time ago. You know, I heard aspirin's really good for you at this stage. I'm going to keep taking it. Who's to say he's wrong? A doctor may recommend. Will a doctor know? How often are we seeing new studies that seem to blow all the previous studies out of the water? Now, you got to listen to these guys, no doubt about it, but a second opinion is a way of life in America, or at least it should be. Takes me back to those Fauci days. Listen to Fauci. Listen to Fauci. What? How dare we ever have got in that position? It's just the weirdest thing. It's almost like a bad dream. Anyway, how was your Memorial Day? You know, I went to a beautiful kind of tribute ceremony for those who served in the remembrance, and it was very, very nice. I once heard, a long time ago, from a war journalist by the name of Sebastian Junger. He wrote a bunch of books. He was on ABC News for a while. He owned a bar in Chelsea. Never met the guy, but I was reading something he wrote once. And he profiled these veterans who, weirdly enough, slept better. Like they got more hours rest when they were in Afghanistan than they did when they were back home. They were having a lot of trouble sleeping back home. And he was fascinated by that. And it turned out in Afghanistan, he knew that the troops knew that there was security. Say what you will, you got 24/7 security, right? Yeah, somebody is always on watch. Someone is always on watch. When you are back home, they're not 24/7 looking out for your house, looking out for you or your well-being. Yeah, they may have a handful of cops in the neighborhood. That's different from having like 24/7 perimeter security, and no bad guys can get in, and at least you got weapons to defend yourself. You got a lot of guys all over the place with weapons. Just a very interesting thing that stayed with me. Now, I heard Mike Slater say something, and he was marveling at the fact that so few people actually serve in the military. It's like 0.4% of the American population right now is on active duty in the military. And to that I say, that's fine. That's fine. This is not a militaristic society. It's not supposed to be. We don't want one of those. We got a great military. We support them. We honor their service. But we don't work for them. And sometimes I see it, a little trick is played. And they weaponize our patriotism and use it against us. And you get really bad guys like General Milley and Clapper and some of these other folks who served in the military or served in, sometimes even in law enforcement. And like, you don't know what you're talking about because you didn't serve. No, actually, I do know what I'm talking about, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether I served or not. It matters what's happening right now today. And you may have served, and you may be a great guy. And you may have served, and you may have been stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from the Coalition Provisional Authority in Iraq. I know a guy personally who did that. I couldn't believe it. He was sharp. He was handsome. He was a great pilot. I knew him back when he was a pilot in America, in Yuma, Arizona, and actually a little bit in Cherry Point. I went through flight school with him. He was a little bit behind me. And he was a very good pilot, really sharp, impressive guy. And after flight school, I never thought of him again until about 10 years later, and I'm in Iraq. And all of a sudden, here he is. Hey, it's you, Mark. I'm just going to use his full name. This guy's name was Mark. Hey, what the hell oh, wow, you win it. Okay, civil affairs. Yeah, I understand. Tax-free. You can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money going to combat, actually. You can actually save a lot of money. And he told me about that, and he told me, what they were doing. And I spent basically a day with him going around Fallujah, not the greatest place in the world. And then I left, and then I never thought of him again until about 2 years later when he got arrested for stealing money from Iraq. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash he was putting in his little knapsack there, and he brought it home. And how about that one? That's... So, people are people, and people in uniform are people. People out of uniform are people, and people are great. People can be not so great. It's a mixed bag. And sometimes I see these guys, and I don't know. Everybody's got we never want to blindly follow anybody, to be honest. Anybody. You gotta be smart about this. Hey, good luck to Ken Paxton. He's running for the U.S. Senate. The primary is today in Texas, and President Trump just endorsed him. And I think it's time that John Cornyn, it's about time, right? How long has he been there? 20 years, 25 years, something like that. He's one of the look. He loves Bush, and Bush loves him. We can't trust Gordon. Holds his nose around all things MAGA. Here he is on the Fox and Friends this morning, John Cornyn. Running for Senate. He's getting a little bit desperate, and he's really bad-mouthing our man Ken Paxton, who sat in that chair about 6 months ago, and it wasn't looking that good. But where is he right now? He's on the verge of winning this thing. He was just endorsed by President Trump, and if he pulls it off tonight, he's going to be the next senator, because this Tallarico guy, there are 17 genders, and God is non-binary. He ain't going to be... He's don't mess with Texas, Tallarico. Go ahead. The Cornyn thing.
Well, with regard to Ken Paxton, Texans have learned that you can't trust a thing that Paxton says, because he's lied to taxpayers, his senior staff, got impeached by a Republican-led House of Representatives, and hung taxpayers with $6.6 million in a judgment from whistleblowers who turned him into the FBI. So because he was interfering with a federal investigation of one of his campaign donors. And look, Lawrence, I've supported the president's agenda the whole time that he's been president. I'm proud of the fact that we confirmed hundreds of justices, including 3 new Supreme Court justices. I was the whip, or the chief vote counter, during his first term when we passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and in the Working Family Tax Cuts Act this time. So I've been an ally of the president. He's called me a friend. I understand he's made his choice, but only Texans get a chance to vote in this primary, and I'm hoping that those who did not vote early and the 75% who didn't vote at all in the primary will come out today and cast their vote.
Okay. Well, no. We don't like this guy. Let's see here. He's done kinds of things that, look, he was one of these guys condemning the MAGA people on January 6th. He went all with that fake news narrative. There's some inside baseball stuff that I quite can't put my finger on. But in his closing argument there, he's just talking about what a bad guy he thinks Paxton is. And not too much, really. Kind of, I voted with the president. I don't know. Now, here's John Thune. He is very upset that President Trump endorsed Ken Paxton over John Cornyn. John Thune, he's amazing. Won't do the SAVE Act for some reason. What on earth could he possibly have up his sleeve? It's something dark and bad. Go ahead with pretty boy John Thune, if you don't mind. Hit it.
Given that you've spent months trying to persuade the president to endorse John Cornyn in the Texas primary, and given that the NRSC has invested heavily to help Cornyn win that primary, how personally disappointed or frustrated are you with the president's decision to endorse Ken Paxton today?
Well, I think you all know my position on this issue. I've made it very clear for months now. And Senator Cornyn is a principled conservative. He is a very effective senator for the state of Texas. And but none of us control what the president does. He made his decision about that. That doesn't change the way I feel. I am certainly supportive of, will continue to be supportive of Senator Cornyn and his reelection.
How much harder, if he made it to keep the majority, how much harder has the president's decision here made it for you? The number one job to keep the Republican majority, given your concerns about Ken Paxton's viability as a candidate.
We look at lots of races around the country, and the majority runs through a lot of different states. We have 24 seats up this time. The Democrats have only 9, so we've got a lot more ground to defend. We also have a couple of offensive opportunities. So, one state doesn't determine the outcome of this election, but obviously we care about every state, and we care about helping see our incumbents succeed. That being said, I feel very good about where we are. As I've said before, I think when it comes to winning elections, it starts with quality candidates. Then you got to have a record of accomplishment to run on. You've got to have resources to get that message out, tell that story to the American people, and then you've got to have a really substantial effort to get out the vote, a ground game. And I feel confident in all those elements in all the key states where we're going to have competitive elections this year. And I'm very confident we'll hang on and maybe even expand the majority of the United States Senate, which is counter, I know, to the sort of the narrative these days. But the truth of the matter is we've got the right candidates in the right places at the right time and with the right resources. We're going to win some races.
Well, you couldn't really see it, but he's seething. His jaw, he's clenching his jaw. He's mad. So this is the kind of province of his. He's the senatorial campaign committee, right? He is the one who decides where their money goes, and they've been putting a lot of money behind this Cornyn. But, John Thune, maybe you should go too. He's not up. He's not vulnerable. But John Cornyn, I had to look this up. I had to understand a little bit more about him. And aha! He was all in for the fake news about George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. Oh, my goodness gracious. He was taking a knee. He was so upset with that whole fake news crap about George Floyd being murdered, about how there's systemic racism, people who don't look like me are suffering, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's the kind of speech a Democrat might deliver in the wake of the George Floyd thing. Go ahead.
Object to my colleague's resolution.
Madam President, last Monday, George Floyd died at the hands of a Minneapolis police officer. This senseless death left Americans reeling. Most of all because there have been too many George Floyds.
Oh, give me a break.
And Breonna Taylors. And Ahmaud Arbery's. As a nation, we need to work to ensure that what happened last Monday in Minneapolis never happens again.
So what this is...
And that the perpetrators of crimes...
is the opposite of leadership.
...brought to justice. We also need to acknowledge how deeply many of our fellow citizens are suffering in the wake of George Floyd's senseless
it's nauseating. He went with where the wind was blowing, right, at that moment. That is the opposite of leadership. That's the thing about these guys. They don't lead. They respond to the passions of the moment, which you're not supposed to do as senators, and their donors. And sometimes people who are very important Well, I'll just say it. The Bushes. We'll be right back.
Greg Kelly.
Let's go, Brandon.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Greg Kelly.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Why is that so funny when Sid says that? What point is it you want to make besides that? Great stuff, great stuff. You saw Sid introducing the president at that great big thing. When was that? Thursday, Friday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, Sunday. Name the movie. You know it, Godfather 1. Andrew Giuliani, our friend, the son of the mayor, is busy running the World Cup. This great big soccer match is coming very, very fast. Very fast. And it's going to give me a lot of free time. I don't care for that soccer stuff. It's the what do you call it? The field is too big. It's a great big game that chase the ball for 3 hours, and I can't tell the teams apart half the time, and I just have no interest. Sorry. But I want it to be a big, successful event. And let's see here. Congo must isolate or risk the World Cup becoming destroyed because of the Ebola outbreak. Did you know about this? Well, sounds like he knows what he's doing. They did a huge story about Andrew Giuliani. You know, Andrew became famous when he was 8 years old, standing by his dad during that inauguration. People still remember the Chris Farley skit or whatever. That's probably, I'm sure he's kind of annoyed with that by now. But it's part of who he is. He's doing a great job. And I know this because the New York Times did like a 10,000-word story on him the other day. And the New York Times did not want to write a nice story about Andrew Giuliani, and they didn't. However, it wasn't awful. It was not an awful story, right? What happened was they said we talked to Andrew Giuliani for 85 minutes. They had an 85-minute interview with Andrew Giuliani. Now, if you spend any kind of time with Andrew Giuliani, you're going to know a couple of things. He's thoughtful and smart, all right? And he's nice. He's a pleasing kind of, personality. You like him. So those guys at the New York Times, even they have a heart, okay? And so they got to let him off easy. And their editors probably were very, very upset, but good for him. All right, do me a favor. I want to go back to this John Thune character. John Thune is a problem. We have a problem. Thune the loon. Oh, something else. Just before I go on. If anybody tells me about PTSD again, I'm going to lose it. I am going to lose it. I am going to go PTSD crazy. I met somebody not too long ago. And they're telling me, it was at an event, and this person was obviously military, former military, but very much a lot of military paraphernalia, introduced himself as a disabled vet, and the person looked totally able-bodied. Okay, I just kept on saying, disabled, disability, disabled, this, that, and the other thing. I just had to ask him. I mean, like, okay, is your leg gone and I can't see? I mean, and so I said, what happened over there? What happened? Were you in Iraq or Afghanistan? Oh, no, I was in South Korea. Oh, you're in South Korea. Okay. Well, you can still become disabled in peacetime. I've seen that a million times. You fall asleep in the wrong spot. A tank runs over your leg. It happens. People are killed all the time in peaceful operations. I know. Well, 4 pretty guys. I was in about 4 years in the military. Maybe it was even 2.5 years. There were 4 plane crashes, like right next to me, right on the flight schedule with me. These guys went down hard, and 4 guys died in 4 different plane crashes in just about 25 months or so. Anyway, you know what this person said? PTSD. I said, that's your disability? PTSD? And you got that in South Korea? You know what I felt like? You know what I wanted to do? I wanted to be like General Patton. I wanted to grab this person and slap him around and say, come on, you can act like a man. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. How about pretty typical stuff that happens on a daily basis when you're in the military and you're at war? All right? Pretty, typical. S, stress, stuff. I don't want to call it stress. Stuff that happens on a daily basis when you're in war. Okay? PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. No, pretty typical stuff that happens on a daily basis when you're in war. Now, speaking of that, some horrible things do happen in war. And you know what? People get depressed. People have bad memories. People make mistakes. But if we go around calling it PTSD, and you can actually profit from it, and you can have a future that way, that's very counterproductive. It's counterproductive for the person, it's counterproductive for the military, and it's counterproductive for America. Because everybody has gone through some sort of stress at one point or another. You know what I mean? Okay. Oh, I want to do this. President Trump at Arlington National Cemetery. Yeah, he loves this. He loves this. He's so good, by the way, at the ceremony. That is, it's great. He's always fantastic, actually. Especially, and when I hear these messages, I see guys who can, I see leadership that will appeal to everybody in the best possible way. I always said that President Trump, when I first heard him speak in 2015 after he came down that escalator, that he could be a president like no other, or like that we haven't seen in 40 or 50 years, a president who could win 49, 50 states. I could see that. I still think not, he won't be up for re-election, but I think there will be a moment. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I feel it. Can we go back to that sissy John Thune, though? Okay, this is what he's got to deal with. You heard that. Civilization versus barbarism. And listen to this guy. Take the side of the barbarism. He's okay with the barbarism. It's beautiful, right? Oh, George Floyd. Oh, don't point out that he was a drug addict criminal who threatened a pregnant woman with a knife, saying, give me the money, give me the drugs, or I'm going to kill your baby. He did that. St. George Floyd did all that stuff. Oh, yeah, he did. Oh, yeah, clean your ears. Go ahead, okay? Pick it up.
We also need to acknowledge how deeply many of our fellow citizens are suffering in the wake of George Floyd's senseless death. A lot of our fellow Americans are afraid right now, shaken by another death, and worried that could easily have been their son or husband or brother.
This is a Republican.
Too many
South
Americans feel unsafe in their own communities. And we need to listen to them with humility, to listen to those whose experience of America has often been very different from many of ours.
Stop. Hey, you know what you should do, John, if you want to listen to them? Listen to the 911 calls. Do a little bit of research before you shoot your mouth off like this, going with the left. Because this kind of crap set us back years. And you can go look at the 911 calls. Are they calling? Who are they calling about? Who are the description? Who are they describing in these communities? All right? It's overwhelming. In communities of color, the perpetrators of crime are overwhelmingly black. And overwhelmingly, what do they want? More cops. More cops. Unfortunately, too many communities, they go with the anti-cop Democrat around election time. It's a real phenomenon that we haven't figured out yet. But that's John Thune. That's John Thune. That's our guy in the Senate right now. This is the guy who is actually okay with, doesn't want the SAVE Act passed. He's sticking it to President Trump in big ways and small. And it's not any better with Mitch McConnell. And the two of these guys are conspiring right now to stop the $1.7 billion for the January 6ers. And if you want to talk about PTSD, genuine PTSD, these people didn't sign up for that. They signed up for a peaceful protest, a genuine peaceful protest. I keep hearing, you know what they want to do? They want to make huge exceptions in the law for anybody accused of attacking a police officer can't be compensated. Now, when you find out that the whole thing was corrupt and a setup, anything that stems from that, like there's no basis. You have to, none of the charges can stick. But I want to talk about, because I don't want to see cops attacked. I also don't want to see civilians lose their fundamental rights to free speech. So I've been through more footage than probably anybody. And the most severe skirmish I saw between cops and January 6ers was the pushing and shoving, and it literally was that, pushing and shoving by a bike rack. All right, I don't know what they thought the security from a bike rack would do. I mean, maybe if you're guarding a soccer game at a middle school, a couple of bike racks might do it. But unless you actually wanted to something weird to happen, that's when you start relying on bike racks. So they relied on bike racks. How about that one? Anyway, the protesters had a right to be there. They had a right to be on the Capitol Hill steps. We have the permits that showed that they belonged right up there. And they were being shut down by law enforcement. Shut down. You can't exercise your freedom of speech. That you are actually, even beyond just being able to say stuff, you have a permit that you can say stuff and you can say it right here. And they said, go away. Well, that's going to flip a switch. It flipped a switch in me. Anybody see my picture on Instagram? A couple of years ago, I made a big sign making fun of Joe Biden. Joe Biden went right outside this address on his way to, where the hell was he going? A fundraiser or something like this. This is just after he lost the big debate to Donald Trump. He was still a candidate, but he was in trouble. So I decided to have some fun, and I took a great big whiteboard, and I wrote, Joe, you lost. And I was really only going to take a picture and then go back inside. But then the cops started hassling me. They said, you can't do that here. I'm like, why the hell not? No, you can't do that here. And they kept telling me to go somewhere else, that I had to get back. And I said, no, I'm not moving. I'm on this side of the barrier. Where else do you want me to go? What are you talking about? I'm allowed to be here. And I got the sense that they were thinking about arresting me. And the more aggressive they got, the more aggressive I got. And I started mouthing off to them. I had no intention to mouth off to cops. I never want to mouth off to cops. But when they were getting aggressive with me about my free speech, when they thought that the police could take that away, there's something, I don't know, I flipped. I sat down. I didn't budge. I'm like, I'm staying here. I was American. I started using curse words. I'm not going anywhere. And then I went somewhere because I thought that they were this close to arresting me. I had to get the hell out of there. How could I explain it to my wife? My wife! Can you go back to Mr. Thune, please? We got to get... Did we know anybody who lives in San Diego, South Dakota? Pick it up.
Madam President, in the wake of George Floyd's death, Americans took to the streets and cities across the country to express their outrage. They joined a powerful tradition and exercised a cherished right. Peaceful protest is an American institution, and as the civil rights movement demonstrated, a powerful agent for change.
Shut up. Stop that. Stop that. You know, you can protest, but you can't take over the streets. And you can't set things on fire, you jerk. He was in the middle of all that stuff. One of these guys lying and calling it mostly, I think he even uses the phrase, mostly peaceful protests. Mostly peaceful. Pick it up if you don't mind.
And these protests aren't relegated to big cities. We're seeing them in towns across South Dakota and in many other places in the United States. Unfortunately, though, there's also been counterproductive and unnecessary violence. Arson, looting, and destruction of property have happened in cities around the country.
There you go.
And communities have suffered damage that will be felt for years. Community spaces and community buildings have been damaged.
Why doesn't he lead with this? First, in his first breath, he says, this is a beautiful American tradition. No, it's a natural offshoot. The looting, the damage, when you let people take over the streets, they take it over. What do you think happens next, you dummy? Be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Did you hear that? Singh, S-I-N-G-H. Someone from South Asia, I believe, here illegally. Remember when we were seeing on Fox News? I mean, look, I kind of expected the illegal aliens. I knew it was happening, and they were coming from Mexico, and they were coming from Central America, and less frequently South America. But then we had this weird situation where they, and you don't even think of it, where they were coming from India, where they were coming from Nigeria. I mean, and they're coming from Russia. They're coming from weird places that they never sought, right? They never came in that way before. I believe it was a Biden administration operation, totally, to change the fundamental makeup of America, to change the Constitution, to kind of come up with a system where, you know, stacked the Supreme Court. They knew how these people could be portrayed. First of all, when you first get here, you're very vulnerable. You're very vulnerable to persuasion. And I think they could actually even, a lot of immigrants who come here legally, they're hardworking, they love it. They're here because they want to be here. And not just for a job, but for what we represent, what we're into. You know, this reflects horribly on is Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, I've yet to drop my my opus on Gavin. It's almost ready. I've been working on this baby for about 3 months, and I'm telling you, it's going to be a doozy. It's going to blow this campaign wide open, and all of a sudden, all the polls you see about 2028 will be different because, well, they'll have to factor in Gavin will take a hit because of this, and I don't think he can actually run. Now, then again, he might run, but he can't win. All right, let me put it to you this way. So I'm going to read you this killer thing. Shoot, there's the music. Maybe when we get back, or maybe I'm worried a little bit too much about him, but I am worried about him. It's wild to me that he got as far as he did. It's also interesting that in his state, yet another man pretending to be a girl has dominated a girls' track and field event. Dominated. Andy Hernandez, pretending to be Annette Hernandez, just beat all the genuine girls at a track and field event in Orange County, California, what used to be one of the most conservative places on earth. Be right back.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?